Now, the Sony ZVE10 was one of those cameras that came onto the market and took the market by storm. In fact, it was one of those cameras that hits the market with a unicorn category of breaking the internet with all of its extra features that it has for content creators without breaking the bank. An incredibly hard task to achieve to match a budget camera with something that is actually appealing for everybody to use and jam-packed with everything that we want. However, a few years have transpired since the Sony ZVE10 actually came out to the market, and I wondered, is it still good enough for 2024? Now, my main camera that I film on is the Sony FX30 and I absolutely love it. However, I have been enjoying the Sony ZVE10 as well and going out and just expanding my content creation experience using something that potentially doesn't have as good a quality as my FX30. Now, this camera was actually a gift to me from one of my awesome mates, Paulie, but I did go out and I bought that 18-105 f4 lens to go on this, and I believe that this actually turns the Sony ZVE10 into a content creation beast, and I believe that this is probably one of those lenses that everyone can use for pretty much every situation. And if you're thinking about that one lens that you need that's going to cover you, this is definitely the one. Not only that, the 18-105 f4 is a power zoom lens, which I personally absolutely love. It is the smoothest zoom that you can possibly think to have if you're having those zooming in and zooming out shots, which I use a lot on my other channel. It's a golf channel, so when somebody hits a golf ball, I need to zoom in to see exactly where the golf ball's landed, and that does it with an incredibly smooth success. Is that the word I'm looking for? Probably not. Not only that, because it's an APS-C camera, the 18-105 internal zoom lens, I forgot to mention that part as well, it's an internal zoom, so it doesn't actually come out and in. So if you want to go and put it on a gimbal, which Paulie also gave me, if you want to go and put it on a gimbal, it's going to stay balanced 100% of the time, and that zoom is not going to throw out the balance, which is a massive, massive bonus. Then the price of this lens comes in, I bought this at 560 Australian dollars, which is probably like, what, 450 American dollars, maybe a little bit less. That is so cheap. In fact, I can buy 3 of these lenses for its equivalent in the Canon full frame lens, which is the 24-105, and I also absolutely love that lens, but this is way cheaper and gets incredible quality. So, because the Sony ZVE10 is jam-packed with so many features, I actually had to write myself some notes. I don't use a teleprompter. Everyone always tells me that I talk way too fast, including Paulie, and I'm trying to slow down. I just don't know how, so bear with me. To give you some examples of the power zoom lens that I've added onto the Sony ZVE10, here they are up on screen right now. Now, I really love this because it suits a whole bunch of applications, especially for me playing a lot of golf. I need to zoom into that golf ball, and I need to make sure that I can keep focus with the same aperture. If this didn't have a constant f4 aperture and that aperture changed through that ball flight, then it would blow out my exposure, or it would get too dark, or something would happen where it wouldn't keep a clean and consistent image. That lens for me, if you're buying the Sony ZVE10 and you're wanting to save yourself a couple of bucks, is a no-brainer. The next thing is, because the Sony ZVE10 was so successful, of course Sony were always going to bring out the Sony ZVE10 Mark II, but that means that this little camera here has now gotten cheaper and cheaper. So the differences between 8-bit and 10-bit are definitely noticeable, but if you know how to use the camera and you know how to push and pull your colors in the right way, then you can definitely make them comparable. And here's an example on screen right now where I'm using the 8-bit color from the Sony ZVE10 versus a 10-bit color on the Canon R8. Now, I love the Canon R8. I think it's a fantastic camera, but the 8-bit Sony ZVE10 color actually compares pretty closely to a much more expensive camera. So kudos to Sony for that, because they've done a really good job. Now, when we're talking about this camera for content creation and content creators, I believe that this setup here is pretty much the one and done setup if you're not wanting to break the bank and use it for a whole variety of applications. So what I mean by that is you can actually add your microphone here. I've got the top handle and a camera cage, but this is a Deity D4 Duo mic, and what this does is it allows me to speak into the back of the mic as well as get the sound coming from the front of the mic. So if I'm vlogging with somebody else, or if I want to turn the camera around, I don't have to worry about flipping the mic backwards and forwards, but this camera setup pretty much does it all. If you're wanting to create reels like this is definitely a camera setup that's going to be able to do it for you with really great quality, especially for things like Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts, and even full landscape YouTube videos. The Sony ZVE10 is no slouch and will definitely keep up with the camera quality of today's cameras. So what are you going to be comparing the Sony ZVE10 to in terms of camera quality today if you're competing, which you really kind of do on YouTube for video quality and that sort of thing, against the market? Well, a lot of people are going to be using the DJI Osmo Pocket 3, which I believe is a fantastic camera, and it actually comes in with 10-bit color, with D-Log, and with a whole bunch of extra features that the Sony ZVE10 just doesn't offer. It has a 180-degree roll, it has a whole bunch of time-lapse features and hyperlapse features, it has active track to be able to keep you in the center of the frame and basically be your own cameraman. This thing does it all, except What it doesn't do is it doesn't have interchangeable lenses. It also doesn't have a power zoom like what this one does. So for different applications and different content creators, the Sony ZVE10 is still actually going to be a little bit better than the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 if it's your only camera. If you can have both, then it is definitely a powerful combo. So I've decided to do a golf hole vlog with the Sony ZVE10 ASMR style, of course, playing some golf. Let's check it out. Now, as a YouTube video, you could do that for a whole video. You could go and play 9 holes of golf, you could do that, and the quality looks amazing. A couple of things that you need to be aware of is just where the camera's positioned. Make sure that you're not positioning the camera directly into the sunlight because you're going to lose quality, it's going to overexpose, it's going to do those things. So having a few camera tips and tricks up your arsenal will definitely help making sure that your video doesn't look like arsenal. The low light capabilities of the Sony ZVE10. Now this has been well documented pretty much through YouTube, and I think that even at an f4 with this lens, it can produce some really good quality images. If we take a look at this across Dusk, I mean, this is just phenomenal. We're talking about a camera that's years old now that only has 8-bit color, and it's able to perform to this level and this standard, which I just think is really, really good. And it's a no-brainer as to why this was such a popular camera when it came out. All right. We're putting the book down because we're going to be talking about some downsides of the Sony ZVE10 that people bring up quite often and say as a, just a lacking point in this amazing little camera. And one of them is that it doesn't have 4K 60. It only goes up to 4K 30. You also have 25, which I use. You have 50, which I use. So in terms of the 4K 60 and the 4K 30, that would be awesome if the Sony ZVE10 had it. It doesn't. That's now in the Sony ZVE10 Mark II with 10-bit color, and that is just an incredible camera. However, for the price that you can pick up this combo, which right now, because of the price drop, is probably the same with this lens and camera as the Sony ZVE10 Mark II, maybe just like $100 more, you can still get incredible quality using 1080p and 4K 50. There's a bit of a buzzword around 4K, but when you're putting it on YouTube, it all gets compressed back anyway. And take a look at this. I mean, I think this looks fantastic, but take a look at it and let me know what you think. I kind of hear a lot of people saying that maybe they should just get this camera and save themselves a few $100. I totally agree. I totally agree. I think that if you're going to get a camera like this and you're starting a YouTube channel, you're wanting to get some TikTok reels, some Instagram reels, whatever, the Sony ZVE10 still in 2024 is absolutely incredible. I mean, we're nearly in 2025, and this thing, if you know what you're doing with it in your hands, can still pack a punch. Its biggest competitor, if I'm being honest, is not the DJI Osmo Pocket 3. The biggest competitor to the Sony ZVE10 is going to be the new iPhone 16 Pro. I have a video coming out on that because I've just bought it for my wife. That thing is absolutely incredible. The audio adjustments that you can make, the camera quality that's coming out of that, and it sits right in your pocket is sensational. I mean, sure, it's a lot more expensive if you're buying it on your own, but most people are buying a phone at some point anyway. So for a content creation camera, that could pretty much make this redundant. Would I go out and personally buy this camera again if I was starting a YouTube channel? Absolutely. I would have no problems, no dramas whatsoever using the Sony ZVE10 and creating great quality content. In fact, there's somebody who goes out and does cinematic vlogging with just the Sony ZVE10. That is Evan Lindley. I'm going to link his channel in the description below. That is a really, really cool channel if you want to go and see the capabilities and the cinematic qualities of the Sony ZVE10. So check it out, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.